Hello, world. Well, I am prepared to read 2 plus 2 equals reality. I'm determined to read it. Lane and Rachel and others have been after me to do this for such a long time. And so I shall do it this day, or explode in the attempt. Now, this is Sunday afternoon, the 17th of March, 1991, as I sit in Rachel's room here at Woodsong on the Hill. And reading this thing is fraught with a degree of difficulty for the reason that, number one, it is my own. They are my own words, so to speak, and it's difficult for me to read them. They were written so many years ago, 30 years ago. This book might have better been titled The Importance of Defining Terms. The reason being that, and the reason for the book, was that we used to have long philosophic discussions there at the bakery. And in the process of using the fancy words that we thought would communicate and express our thoughts, invariably somebody would, midway in a sentence, say, "Hey, what do you mean by that word? What do you mean by spirit? What do you mean by love?" Or they'd even ask, "Well, what do you mean by God?" And it wasn't long in these discussions that I saw for myself that many of my own definitions for words that I used in conversation and in explaining things to others were not words that I had defined for myself necessarily, but had been defined for me by others, by teachers, by churches, by preachers, and so forth. And that yet we all use these words that we should define for ourselves. I guess what I'm getting at here is that I realized how important it is that the words, at least that I use to express my own ideas and opinion, should be words that I have defined for myself. Well, here it is all these years later, 30 years later, and I'm still fighting the battle of words and meaning, still trying to communicate, still trying to use the simplest words and the fewest words to say the most meaningful things to my friends and those to whom I talk, who are essentially myself. Well, in these 30 years later now, I don't speak as I did then. My meanings for the words now are not the same as they were then. Awesome. So I shall just be at it. Let me get off and running. The name of this is 2 plus 2 equals reality. And it begins with a little foreword that says, "There is a simple and gentle light within these words that will change your life and make all things new. It can, it will. But it is a message only the heart can find. Only the heart can find. Search with the heart, and you will find it. Well, now these 30 years later, I would define that word heart much more clearly. I would say that there is a child within us, the original child within us. That child is still there, that little boy or little girl. We allow that one, that little boy, that little girl to hear these words. We search with that child inside. And the child lets us know whether the words are meaningful and honest, or whether they're not. Okay, now goes the book. 2 plus 2 equals reality. With honest and straightforward simplicity, I'm here to say that one can never be free of personal trials and tribulations until he makes his own discovery of reality, God. We will never find more than the most temporal, ephemeral happiness until we make a personal discovery of God, isness. Until we get off our soft sofa and actually make our own determination of reality, of truth, of fact. We will never permanently rid ourselves of the grind and grate in the pit of the stomach, nor find ourselves free of that feeling of impending doom until we make our own individual determination of exactly what God means to us, of what God is to us. Now just what does the term God mean to you, reader? Listener? Prior conditioning need not deter you nor anyone else from making this personal determination. Often the mere mention of God brings the disillusioned dismissal. Oh, here's another of those God messages. I already know what it's going to say. Similarly, the highly educated and sophisticated slam mental doors, having already erected countless defenses to protect their old and cherished opinions as to what God is. Yet both those who disregard and those who build the most elaborate defenses are usually those who are suffering the greatest personal agonies. To plunk metal fingers into metal ears at the mere mention of God cannot alter the truth. Oh, but it does a superb job of gluing one, holding one, binding one to unnecessary fears, frustrations, and anxieties. Now let me say it another way. If you have tried everything else and are still periodically miserable, if you still contend with one problem after another, if you still have not solved the problem of fear and increasing pressure, and if you're really ready to stop suffering, it is time to do yourself a favor. Start this minute, right now, to begin your own determination of what God, reality, truth is. One can never be happy nor self-satisfied until he does. One can never be free of trials and tribulations until he does. One can have no permanent sense of health or wealth until he does. No one will ever be free of personal fear or insecurity until he makes a determination for himself, of just what God is to him. Well, who am I? Who are you? Why are we here? What is the purpose of life? Who or what is God? What is absolute reality? Reality is the most real thing in a person's life. The term, the very word itself, should therefore mean something real and tangible to one, more so than any other word. Obviously, one's determination of reality embraces much more than words. It includes the infinity of nonverbal feelings, sense perceptions, intuitive knowings. The word itself, then, brings to mind this vast meaning that is considerably greater than a mere definition. Thus, the academic acknowledger stating it is not possible to define infinite God by means of finite words is really just a lame excuse to not define the term for ourselves, to go on sleeping, and to make no personal effort to define reality at all. Well, what do you know about reality? Do you know what's real and what is not? Can you separate fact from fiction? Can you answer Pilate's old question, what is truth? Can you define God? These terms must mean something specific to you, something concrete and understandable that expands as the light of understanding grows brighter. Well, now the time has come to stop fooling around. It's time to get the answer. Now here we go. Not someone else's answer. Not from somebody else. Not someone else's version of the answer. But to get your own answer. Arrived at yourself from the depth of your very own being. Here and now you can begin this personal effort to determine just what fact, principle, reality, truth itself is. In spite of all that mankind has been told for centuries, this isn't an impossible task. It isn't hard to do. It isn't even an uphill struggle. It is the happiest thing you will ever undertake. As one divests himself of former beliefs and opinions and begins to arrive at his very own concept of God through his own effort and from out the wisdom of his own heart, then God, reality, truth, reveals itself to that one, just as it has been said, seek and ye shall find. Everyone, every single person on this earth can arrive at a precise understanding of God for himself. Now, how can this be so? Well, because God is uncomplicated and easily understood. Now, I know this flies in the face of so many teachings who speak of the ineffable, the infinite unknowable, the indefinable one. But I have reference here to what does the word God mean to you? To you. It must mean something to you, even if it is an indefinable something. When one lets go all the things that they say about God and stops accepting them blindly as his own beliefs, God becomes remarkably apparent. And why not? What sort of God would it be that withholds himself from all those who have not suffered enough, or studied hard enough, or searched diligently enough, or prayed earnestly enough in just the right way? What sort of God would it be who absents himself from those who haven't been baptized in this or that fashion, or have not joined this organization or that one? What sort of love would it be that withholds itself from half the population of the world just because it isn't Christian or Mohammedan, or because it isn't acquainted with this or that arcane, unprofaned, metaphysical wisdom? What sort of love withholds itself from those not subscribing to this or that set of dogmas and beliefs, not honoring this or that ritual and ceremony? Will be assured, God does not withhold himself from anything. God is right here, right now, closer than fingers and toes, closer than breathing. There is no distance nor separation between oneself and God, mentally or otherwise. You will find that God is all that is here. And they shall all know me, from the least of them to the greatest, saith the Lord. God's simplicity is astounding. That is, the God that I have reference to when I say God, Father, the One. God's simplicity is absolutely astounding. And it is this very simplicity that the pompous intellect of mankind can neither see nor understand, while struggling through its jungles of erudite beliefs. We let the beliefs go. We let what they say go. We drop all the old personal opinions, no matter how near and dear they seem. We start anew, turning within to the child heart. Then, when we arrive at our own meaning of God, we happily find that we are also discovering our own real identity and its childlike simplicity. Despite the many beliefs and opinions to the contrary, this is not a slow process of spiritual refinement over a hot fire of personal ordeals. Oh, it may come out that way in our affairs. We don't have to wade through thousands of volumes of ancient and occult lore to join various and sundry organizations or practice their precepts with fanatical diligence. No need to spend years doing good deeds, here a little, there a little. Now, we might very well do all these good deeds, and good works are not being disparaged here, but we do them ultimately because we enjoy them and want to, indeed because we can't keep from it, not because some special favor is supposed to accrue from doing them, and not because we're afraid of what might happen if we don't. One simply does not have to delay his awakening from agony. He does not have to put off the old man bit by bit, or die to the self just a little every day, or laboriously educate himself. One does not have to delay for any reason at all. He may drop the old man with all his trials and tribulations and do it here and now, if he chooses, and immediately he experiences a joy and a tranquility beyond belief. All of this is easily and quickly as awakening from a daydream. Well, listener, how easily can you withdraw from your own mental fantasy in a land of make-believe? Who snaps you out of your own wool gathering but you yourself? Now, when one begins to answer these questions for himself, extraordinary things begin happening in his experience. Trials and tribulations slip away, just quietly go away, one after the other. Even the most persistent pressures lose their power to disturb us. One finds oneself seeing old concepts in a new and lovelier light. Suddenly, or perhaps not suddenly, but eventually, health, wealth, and happiness appear where they seemed absent before. Freedom and tranquility blossom forth in our business. Love begins to permeate every nook and cranny of experience. Untoward conditions of all kinds just vanish like the morning mist. All because we have begun a personal determination of exactly what truth means to us? What does it mean to me? But let me pause a moment, lest this be misleading. These joyful occurrences that I just mentioned here, the return of health and the return of wealth, all of that sort of thing, these occurrences are not goals. They are the added things that come from a personal determination of what God is. And all these determinations have to do with reality, with reality and one's real identity, with who and what God is, with who and what I am. Answer the question, what is truth for yourself? Let the attention remain here, and then as the answers begin to occur, you will enjoy the changes that take place in your day-to-day living quite as something extra as signs following. Yet not half so wonderful as the recognition of your own honest identity. About agnosticism. Recently I met a young man who called himself an agnostic. He said, I am completely disinterested in God. I have no proof that a God exists. And the idea of some super being watching over me and the world is somehow rather ludicrous in light of the world's situation. Besides that, he continued, the blatant hypocrisy of religious man is enough to turn my stomach. Now, this statement rather sums up the opinion of many frustrated people, young and old alike. And another thing he added, how can anything ever be understood when even the oldest religious leaders with years of study behind them are at loggerheads with one another and apparently unable to solve the world's problems? All these things suggest to me that God is the invention of frustrated people wishing for something above and beyond themselves to solve all of their problems. Well, many hold these ideas in this day and time. The ranks of the disillusioned are growing in number, and they come especially from the disenchanted within the religious organizations of the world. People are wondering increasingly about the correctness of their particular brands of religion. Old ideas once accepted as fact seem foolish and superstitious in light of the world's new technological dimension. The break with old theological concepts seems to these people to be a break with God. The arguments against old practices become their argument against the existence of what they term God. Well, it must be pointed out that these are not valid arguments against the existence of God, but are rather arguments against old concepts of God, old ideas about God, and old practices that pervade all religions. I am yet to meet an agnostic or atheist who cannot accept the existence and presence of God once we agree or begin to agree and define the term of what reality is. Usually, atheists deny and agnostics doubt the actuality of God as they understand and define God. Well, they're quite right, because God as they define him couldn't possibly exist. But God, as God is neither doubted nor denied by a single man on this earth and never has been. God as God is accepted without question, even without resistance, by everyone, because God is the very basis of being, the fact of real existence itself. Why, God is life itself. Show me an atheist who will deny he's alive. The doubters and deniers are invariably throwing rocks at their own misconceptions of God, at the usual definitions of God, or at the generally accepted idea of what God can do. Well, now, I'm quick to agree that the popular idea of God is incorrect, and that such a God does not, in my opinion, exist and never has. But God, as God is, does exist as a very present reality and as the undeniable basis of existence. Truth, reality, fact exist. This is all that really does exist right here, right now, this moment. The agnostic is not questioning fact. He is questioning a misstatement about fact. The misstatement has nothing to do with fact at all, just as the incorrect statement 2 plus 2 is 5 has nothing to do with the fact of arithmetic. A man is blind who breaks with fact, capital fact itself, and doubts its existence just because an individual or an organization makes a misstatement of some sort in the name of fact. You no longer need be concerned with the many misstatements of others. None of us need be concerned with all of those misstatements of others. We can each determine what fact is to ourselves, and we stay there. As you do this, you find yourself less concerned about what is not fact, and much more concerned with the infinite fact of perfect being itself. About science and religion. Much has been said about the incompatibility of science and religion. While there may often be a difference between science and the beliefs about God as they are professed by the many human organizations, there is no argument between God as God is and anything. Absolute reality is the basis for the existence of things, and science is the study of things. Science now remarkably indicates the holistic singleness and absolute perfection of existence. Scientists are finally discovering the truths that some philosophies have expounded for thousands of years. This lag exists simply because science starts with the appearance of things and then works back to the reality which is their basis. The scientist is somewhat like a mathematician who starts with a group of numbers on a piece of paper, and while they're only numbers at first, the astute mathematician eventually comes to understand the underlying perfect principle, which the numbers are manifestations of. Now, obviously, the fastest discovery concerning numbers are made by those who start first with the principle of arithmetic itself, with the principle. Knowledge of the principle is automatic knowledge of the numbers, which exist only to manifest the principle. Now, in the so-called human experience, those who concern themselves with reality as reality is find themselves with a magnificently all-embracing knowledge of things. On the other hand, starting with a multitude of things, one can hope for only a smattering of knowledge in a few fields of human concern. Commencing with the principle of all being, commencing with that, and living out from there, one finds himself with knowledge basic to everything in all fields of human endeavor he needs to know about. Now, this knowledge comes without years of study in the universities and without pondering innumerable tomes of erudition. history is filled with those who, almost overnight, acquired the wisdom and perspicacity their contemporaries spent years struggling for. Jesus went up into the temple and taught, and the Jews marveled, saying, How knoweth this man letters, having never learned? Jesus answered them and said, My doctrine is not mine, but his that sent me. If any man do his will, he will know of the doctrine. The American translation says, How is it that this man knows his letters when he has never gone to school? For those that want to look that up, that's John 7, verses 14 through 17. In effect, Jesus says, knowledge does not come from man and his attempts to arrive at truth. Rather, knowledge belongs to truth, the Father itself, which is the basis for all knowledge. A young woman I know was concerned about her lack of formal education. Because her activities required close contact with people of extensive formal education and training, she frequently felt ill at ease and unable to converse as well as she thought was acceptable or expected. She attended a lecture on reality one evening, during which time the little click of honest understanding occurred, which always happens when the personal sense of self is lost sight of for a moment. Well, since that time, even her closest associates have been astonished at her new poise, grace, and acumen. It's as though she had suddenly read 1,000,000 books. She cannot be fooled. She knows what is and what isn't. She knows the reality that is her identity. Indeed, she knows who and what she is. With this new understanding came quite an added thing, a joy of living that is an inspiration to see. Happiness follows that lady around like a puppy at her feet. The lump of gold illustration. Still concerning science and its observation of things, the following is an interesting point to ponder. Suppose a nugget of gold sits on the table before you. Right there is a nugget of gold, a lump of gold. Well, now what do you see? Do you see gold itself? Or with your eyes, do you see a group of qualities and attributes which you have chosen to name gold? You see yellow because the nugget is yellow. But is there any gold in yellow? No. Yellow appears because gold is. And instead of there being any gold in yellow, yellow is in gold. Or more accurately, yellow exists because gold itself is. You also see the form of that nugget up there. But there is no gold in form either. Form exists because gold is. And so it is with all the qualities and attributes of that nugget up there, that lump of gold on the table. What you see exists because something called gold is. But you do not see the basic primordial isness itself. The qualities, the characteristics, and attributes in toto are the grouping that has just been named gold. And they are all of gold that you ever really see and feel and measure and weigh. Yet, all of them together are still not gold itself. They exist because gold itself is. Now, using biblical language, one might say that yellow lives and moves and has its being because gold is. Yellow will exist just as long as gold is. It is as perfect in every way as gold is in being gold. Now, gold might very well say, yellow is my color in which I am well pleased. And gold, speaking as yellow, might say, I and my basis in being are one, yet gold is greater than I. Gold is the substance and the being of all the qualities and attributes of gold. Gold doeth the works. Gold is the value. So it is that awareness never sees primordial being itself, but sees qualities and attributes. Likewise, one never sees the principle of arithmetic itself. Rather, one sees the signs and the symbols, which are the principle of arithmetic made manifest, but are not the principle. There is no audible sound in the principle of music, yet we hear its melody through the application of its laws. The melody is not the principle itself, yet the melody exists because there's a principle. Principle is first, as all. Principle is alone, single, and pure. Well, obviously, so long as science is concerned with the tangible thing, with the thing, and the weighing and the measuring of the thing, it is not concerned with being, God itself, but only with measurable qualities and attributes of being. But being, isness itself, is the reality, the fact. It is the alone one, besides which there is none other, outside of which nothing exists, and because of which all qualities and attributes have their being. Everyone hopes to experience the absence of lack, limitation, pressure, fear, illness, disease. Everyone wants to experience an inner peace and tranquility. Well, there's a way to do it. But there's only one door to enter by. It has all to do with determining for oneself what is fact and what is fiction about oneself and reality. Now, vague ideas are not enough. It is innate and natural to want to know what fact from fiction. But for too long, someone else's word has been considered fact. Well, something's messed up here with my words, and maybe it is time for me to rest just a minute. I was saying that vague ideas are not enough, and that it is innate and natural to want to know fact from fiction. But for too long, we've taken someone else's word for what fact is. We have allowed the physicists and philosophers to tell us about ultimate reality. For centuries, mankind has been accepting mankind's answers to these questions. My minister says this, my church says that. The Bible, as interpreted by this one or that one, or somebody else says, and the university says, or they say. The question is, who am I? What is my identity? Only the one who asks, who am I, can answer it. No one can take someone else's answer. No one can take humanity's answer, or theology's answer, or philosophy's, or the universities. Their answer alone isn't good enough. No one can take the church's answer, nor even the Bible's answer alone. One must arrive at this understanding for oneself, from within oneself, from the secret place within consciousness, from the Holy of Holies within one's own heart, to which he alone has the key. An old teacher from the Orient said to his students, "I can point to the moon and describe it to you in minute detail, but you must see it for yourself. You must look at it with your own eyes." A teacher explains the alphabet, but the student alone must comprehend it. Well, for a time he learns mechanically and academically, and then suddenly something clicks, something blossoms within, and the student really knows the alphabet and what it is. It's an awakening, a breaking through, a deep within thing. Suddenly he knows it, he knows the alphabet, and he knows it. Now this awakening is very personal. When it happens, one often says, "Why, that's crystal clear. Now I understand." The softer sounds of poetry record such an illumination as follows. It is true. It is true. I am the king. I am. The very words I whispered as tinkling cymbals from the slopes, the same sounds I prattled in pious self-righteousness from the plateaus, and droned as far-off dreams along the pathways of desire, but spoken finally from the mountain that childlikeness is. It is so. I am the king. I have heard of thee by the hearing of the ear, but now it is the eye that seeth thee, O mind, being, me. This is my kingdom. My kingdom is me. My very self I see, all perfect infinity. Just as you learned the alphabet for yourself, while a teacher only pointed the way, now you must discern and understand reality for yourself. Otherwise, truth, reality, that which is, will remain an academic, impersonal, abstruse, and nebulous nothing. Fact will forever remain just what a teacher or a preacher, a leader, or a church, or a book tells you. And this isn't enough. This isn't enough to experience the peace of heart that you hope for, nor see the perfection that you are already. Ask yourself this basic question right now. Who am I? Well, do you know? If you do, you know it. And those around you know it too. Your experience is a tranquility into which nothing that worketh or maketh a lie ever enters in. These words are intended to help one discover the heaven, the peace and tranquility that are right here on earth, to find that all he could ever hope to have is right here, right now, right where we are. To know that it all has to do with determining what fiction is and what fact is concerning God and oneself. The arithmetic illustration. There is a remarkable and magnificent similarity between what is termed God, fact, reality, truth, and the principle of mathematics. Entire philosophic systems have been built around this likeness. Nearly 2,600 years ago, the Greek philosophers and mathematician Pythagoras said that no concept more nearly approached divinity than the principle of arithmetic. He pointed out that nearly every quality attributed to God was already clearly expressed for all to see and understand in the simplest fact of arithmetic. Indeed, there is inherent in nature a revealed as well as a hidden harmony that reflects itself under the image of simple mathematical laws. Now, this similarity aids in understanding more clearly who and what God actually is. Listener, I remind you that as we come to understand what God is to us, we are equally and at the same time coming to understand who and what we are, who and what identity is. And why is that? Well, because we are made in the image and likeness of God. And while, as the philosophers of old might say, the ineffable is past finding out, well, the more we know of ourselves, the more surely and certainly we know of the ineffable. Now, this mathematical similarity aids in understanding more clearly who and what God actually is. It paints a picture considerably more accurate than humanity's anthropomorphic concept. The arithmetic illustration here will help you understand absolute reality in such a manner as to free you from some of your troubles, which are the seeming consequence of ignorance concerning reality or God. Examine these parallels. God is spiritual and not material. The principle of arithmetic is not material either. It cannot be seen or weighed on a scale. It cannot be felt or picked up by the hand. Well, equally, God is omnipresent. You can understand the all-presence of God by contemplating the omnipresence of arithmetic. The principle of arithmetic is everywhere, isn't it? 2 plus 2 is 4 right where you are this minute. So is everything concerning the principle of arithmetic. The entire principle is at the top of Mount Everest, and it's under the waters of the sea. If one were on the moon or at the bottom of a well, the principle of arithmetic would be there too. There is no place in the universe one can... If one were to... I've lost my place. If one were on the moon or at the bottom of a well, the principle of arithmetic would be there too. Now, there is no place in the universe one can go to escape the principle. It is everywhere, every bit, perfectly present. Nowhere is it the least bit absent. I'm sure you can't imagine a place where addition is present but subtraction is absent, or where everything is present except the number 5, or where 2 plus 2 is 4.5. Well, just as one can easily understand that the entire principle of arithmetic is perfectly present everywhere, so can one comprehend the omnipresent perfection of God. Can you imagine a personal situation so frustrating that 2 plus 2 is 4 would not be present? Right there? God, reality, fact, principle is present too, no matter where you are, nor how terrible the seeming situation. In Psalms we read, "Whither shall I go from thy spirit? Or whither shall I flee from thy presence? If I ascend up into heaven, thou art there. If I make my bed in hell, behold, thou art there. If I take the wings of the morning and dwell in the uttermost parts of the sea, even there shall thy hand lead me, and thy right hand shall hold me." The arithmetic illustration is a means by which one is able to comprehend the continuing presence of perfection, which is everywhere. We'll now consider a few more interesting parallels. 2 plus 2 is 4. Now, this is a simple fact of arithmetic. 2 plus 2 is 4, not 5, not 3, not 4 and 1/10, not 3 and 99 100ths. 2 plus 2 is 4 and nothing else. The perfect fact exists. The principle proclaims only the correct statement that 2 plus 2 equals 4. Any other answer, no matter how close, is not the correct answer, nor is it contained within the principle at all. It is not known by the perfect principle and has no existence in it, so far as this perfect principle is concerned. Now, can anyone doubt the accuracy of the principle